and myself, Jason Khalipa.
JK.
We are talking, yeah, JK.
Just
We are
kidding.
talking about the $40 billion youth sports industry. That's something that's like fresh on my mind, for sure. As well as MDV just competed in a body surfing competition. I want to hear all about it. Talk about the fins, talk about the techniques, talk about the incredible waves, and then I want to talk about kind of controlling your body, understanding that at a pro level what it takes. I was just at Daniel Cormier's Fight Club, and I just have incredible things to share about these guys and their ability to control themselves. The most dangerous people that I know by far are also the most controlled, caring people I've ever met. So let's dive right in. I think a good place to start is, Gabe, you sent over a video of uh, a baseball player, for lack of a better term, charging a catcher, like charging, and that's a good place to start.
This was
I
an
think
old
that that's
school 80s, 70s play.
that, and I am curious your reaction because you're the closest to this being. I mean, Caden catches. Like, what are you doing if this were to happen to him? And I know his his reaction was pretty funny, but Liz is playing the video, dude. It's a hit, man. Like a big time hit. So, and a little bit of context here too, dude.
Wow.
He gets taken out.
He wasn't
So-
even on the plate. He wasn't.
But if you're not
that's
watching
a,
this-
that's a terrible play. That's a terrible baseball play. There's nothing good that happened there.
And the context there too, MDV, it's bases loaded and he's stepping on the plate, so the runner's out. There's no it's not a play at the plate where I mean, in Little League, it doesn't even matter if you're you can't try and knock the ball off the catcher. Like, this isn't the 80s Major League Baseball. And I read the comments a little bit, I looked into it, but I have seen before where, these kids, and we can go into later, how much do or die these leagues are too. It's kind of funny to watch the video, and Caden's response was pretty funny, where it's yeah, they wouldn't move me. But, kid breaks a leg, he gets seriously injured, gets concussed.
Catcher broke his leg.
No, I'm saying that,
So in the comments, though, they were saying that because I gotta look into the rule book, and Little League and Travel Ball have different rules. But as far as I'm concerned, if the catcher is impeding, if the runner stays on the baseline and the catcher is in their way, they're allowed to go through them.
No, that rule has changed.
Not.
That rule has changed in Major League Baseball. Dude,
Even
that
on
rule
the
has,
Major League level, you can't do that.
you can't do it anymore. It's like, first of all, that play in Major League Baseball would still have been a dirty play. There's no, even watching that for one time through, there was no baseball play that was happening there, especially knowing that there wasn't a play at the plate where you could
His
tag.
bases loaded. He was out.
Exactly.
As soon as the catcher caught the ball, he was out.
Exactly.
Oh,
and the kid reaches across the plate with the catcher on the first base side of the plate to shoulder check him across the back, this seems like more of a frustration expression, or more of like an anger frustration expression than any sort of play.
Strategic baseball play.
Yeah, it's not a strategic baseball play. It just looks like a kid that got too hyped up. He's on third, has the chance to score a run that might have meant something, and then just barrels over the catcher, which is unfortunate because if the catcher was impeding the play, if there was like a legit play at the plate where the catcher held the ball and he ran into him and it was just like one of those things that was bang, bang, who cares? That would have been my stance on this. It would be like, who cares? They forgot that the rules didn't exist, but this looks dirty to me, and it just is. It's
So
not.
I haven't seen. I have not seen this occur. I'm sure that because dude, Caden's playing 12U travel ball. It's competitive for sure, and there's some stuff that people get hot. I haven't seen anything like as egregious as this. Like, that would be. I imagine if something like this happened, our coaches would like flip. Like, our coaches would be. They would handle it. I don't think as a parent I would assert myself. I would obviously make sure my child was okay. But our coaches, I know them well enough that they wouldn't stand for it. And I would hope the other coaches wouldn't stand for it either. And there'd be a moment, like a teaching moment there of dude, come on. That's what my hope would be, is that as a parent, I'd obviously make sure my child was okay, but then allow the coaches who were empowering in that moment to really coach the kids to take over and use it as a moment to be like, guys, that was unacceptable. That can never happen. And that'd be my hope, I guess. And knowing the coaches that we have on our team, I don't think they would get like hot and like try and start a fight with the other coaches, but I think they would want to take a moment to create a lesson for all the players on the field that was unacceptable and they can never do that again, you know?
I think a lot of the discussion that I wanted to have around this is going to end up coming down to like, it all depends on the coaches. So I'm glad you brought that up because, there's a lot of videos out there, and I shared one of them that is, I think, justifiably highlighting the cons of what youth sports has become and this monster and the incentives in place and like the money being spent. And you can spend a lot of time bashing the system for what it's become and, the potentially net harm it's having on a lot of kids versus like the net positive of all the things that we love about sports. But I do think that the nuance in this is that if you have really good coaches that are going to teach the right lessons and are valuing the things that are supposed to come out of the game and not just winning, not just trophies, not just so on and so forth. I think that that's obviously the nuance there that you brought up. But the one thing that what you were saying reminded me of this being the video that we just showed of the catcher just getting completely taken out, being a teaching moment. One of the things in that other video I showed was in the regionals of the Little League World Series, this one batter does a like completely egregious bat flip after hitting a home run. And as per the rules, he's suspended for a future game. And the parents, instead of making that a teaching moment, like, hey, these are the rules, you violated the rules, whether it was a moment of passion, whatever, they went to the courts and got like, I don't know how this exactly applies.
Injunction.
I don't know how this exactly applies, but it ended up being a restraining order. That's what the video said. I didn't look into the background so much, but let's just take the video at face value. They got a restraining order and the judge ruled in the favor of the kid. And now the kid was able to play the next game despite the suspension, despite the fact that he broke the rule. So I think that a lot of this comes down to the coaching, but also the parents, because I think we can all agree here that, that was the bat flip there. We can all agree here.
That was a big bat flip.
We can all agree here that, like it's not just going to come down to the coaches, but the parents too, right? Like, that is a teachable moment. And the teachable moment is that actions have consequences. And even though this is big stakes, big, Little League World Series, like you kind of got to sit out the next game. You don't go to a judge and get, a restraining order filed to be able to play the next game. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, there's
Did he
a
hit
lot
a
of
game-winning home run there? Sorry to interrupt.
I'm not sure.
I think he might have. I think it might have been like a walk-off situation, right?
So one of the things here that like is strange for me, like I have a little bit of a different opinion on this second one, because even in college sports, particularly college football, this bothers me a lot, where the refs assert themselves based on the rules. It's the rules. I get it. I don't think it should be the rules. In college sports, in football, college football in particular, they don't allow the athletes to celebrate touchdowns beyond just team hugs. Like team dap and hug, and that's it. Like if you do anything beyond the most kind of subtle celebration, you're penalized in college football
for the next kickoff.
Yeah, there's a penalty asserted for the kickoff. Now, I have a little bit of a problem with this based on just how the league has been historically set up and making money off the players. And these are just kids out there playing a game, having fun. And when you start to take the fun elements out of the game and penalizing them for that, I get it. I get that there should be excessive celebration penalties. But if in this case, if that kid just hit a walk-off home run to win his game, why isn't he allowed to maybe the bat flip into like the air, into the crowd or wherever it went? I didn't see the full thing where he threw that thing pretty far. But if you want to celebrate and jump up and down the first baseline as you are rounding the bases, how are you going to suspend a 12-year-old for the next game in that situation? I get it. So it's in the rules.
It wasn't a walk-off, by the way. I looked it up. Was not a walk-off. Okay.
That makes a difference
run in the 6th inning.
That makes a difference.
Yeah.
That makes a difference for me. A normal home run in the middle of a game, I don't think you should celebrate like that. A walk-off home run to win the game, I think that there's a different level.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line here, right? Because you have the moment where you say, hey, there's a teachable moment from the parents. There's also like this idea where it becomes a little bit subjective from the referees, particularly what you're talking about, MDV in college sports. What does justify excessive, right? Like if that's where it starts to get a little bit gray. But I think at the end of the day, this idea that like there's going to be people online that are going to like vilify youth sports because maybe they're going to get clicks or they're going to get whatever. And sure, has it maybe gotten a little extreme in some cases with money spent, this and that? But I'll tell you what, man, in my experience, for both of my children, I would much rather spend all the money in the world and everything that we've done and all the lessons. I mean, my son and I, for an hour 2 nights ago in the hot tub, we're talking about what mantra he's going to work on going up to the plate to learn how to calm himself down because he finds he's getting nervous and he's shaking. I would never have that opportunity to have those conversations unless he was playing these youth sports. And sure, and of course, just like anything, there's always extremes of the case. But like my children, and I believe many people listening and their children are getting so much out of youth sports that, yeah, if you take all the craziness and the, excess necklaces and the crazy parents, those are fringe cases. I think most of the time I've watched many hours of baseball in particular. Dude, it's just such a great thing, man. And I love youth sports and I hope it stays that way. Where it gets a little bit unique is the NIL money. And I think that might cause, because NIL started off in college. Now you're starting to see some high school players getting paid. It's only a matter of time before you start seeing youth sports. Like there's some YouTubers making a ton of money. That's where it starts to get a little bit interesting for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the video that I shared, like literally highlighted kids in their early, like before high school already getting NIL deals.
Yeah.
And, like I hear you, Jay. And I think that, what I've experienced too in going to a couple of Cadence games and just being surrounded by the youth sports that, your kids are in, dude, it's 100% a net positive. I do think that the other side of the argument is the fact that like, it's just becoming like very, very restrictive for the average person because it's so expensive, for some people now, it's
That's
just,
true.
It's 100% pay to play. It kind of is
pay to play.
You can't even, if you wanted to quote unquote approach youth sports with hey, I just want my kids to like try different sports. I want them to, be able to do one sport a season. I don't want to go down the travel ball route. Like I want them to do little league and just have fun and get in there. Based off what I've read, right? Because again, I'm not experiencing this firsthand, but maybe you can speak to this better than I can. They're not going to get playing time. They're going to always be behind the kids that are going all in on this stuff. And even though the coaches will say, yeah, like that's perfectly fine if he starts baseball late because he's finishing up football or whatever, at the end of the day, the incentives and who's actually going to get to like do the thing, get the attention of the coaches is the person that's special. You're kind of like, it's a no-win scenario where you either like jump into the system the way the incentives are laid out, or you kind of like have to participate in like a very participatory level because you're not, specializing, you're not doing the travel sports, you're not doing all the things. So I think that's where, when we talk about like the net effect this is having and where youth sports is going, I think there's a valid argument there to like, it not being the net
But what's the
positive.
alternative, Gabe? Like, I guess my question would be,
That's a good question. That's a really good question.
Does it depend on the nature of the league? Like, I mean, the nature of the league, at least when I was coming up, dictated a lot of this stuff. Like there were travel leagues, there were elite leagues, there were leagues that were, fun fall ball leagues. There were the normal town rec leagues, and the attitudes of the coaches were largely dictated, and the caliber of the players were largely dictated by which leagues you were playing in.
yeah.
And I don't know if that has changed to the point where every league is now dominated by, specialized athletes and special coaches, and you have to have the most elite gear and only certain kids get playing time. But, I was fortunate to grow up in a place where I was able to play ball at a young age, all the way from like T-ball into, third, fourth, fifth grade, in basically like a rec league where there were a lot of kids who played who didn't have a lot of skills, and they got playing time, and they were part of the team, and it didn't really matter your win-loss record as much. It was just fun. And then there were the elite travel teams, the Williamsport teams, and all that kind of stuff that I also got to experience a little bit of. And that was a much different level. You were riding the pine if you weren't, really an elite level player. You were a utility player, which was what you would essentially be in a bigger league or a college league or a high school league. So I don't know if that's still the case, Jay.
No, they do. Like, so just to kind of go full circle on this, I think my kind of perspective on youth sports is that it's going to become more and more required of the parent to be like, to remain open-minded and to, it's going to be, dude, you get sucked in. Like, and Kelly briefly mentioned this like you get sucked in. And as a parent, you got to be like really aware of like, hey, am I getting sucked into this, or are we listening to the child? Am I still doing the best I can to expose them to different things? That's what I think about on a regular basis, because MDV, they still have, and in particular for baseball and other sports, rec leagues, and then they have obviously competition leagues.
Yeah.
But it gets hard, because what happens is you have some kids that come into rec league, and it's harder and harder because, again, it gets more and more competitive. And I was looking up some statistics. I was very curious on this. And Ava has now gotten into water polo, and I never thought in a million years that I would be researching water polo, educating myself on water polo, and watching it. And I love
sport,
it,
bro.
It's such a
It's
gnarly
a brutal sport.
Brutal.
Yeah, it's tough.
But here's like the piece of advice from a parent perspective. Like, if you had asked me a year ago, what sport do you think your daughter would play? I'd said, well, I don't know if that's cut out for her. I'm not quite sure, but we're going to keep exposing her to different things and see what happens. And sure enough, something hit. And I think that is the one downside to youth sports, is that it is so encouraging this specialization at a young age that you may never be able to expose them to other things. But 90% of water polo playing occurs in the state of California, 90%. And all of the top schools are in California, in particular for females. And so I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. And California is also the top state for baseball. And so it just, no wonder these are kind of gravitating towards my
Big
life.
state.
Is that California is the number one state. Next to it, behind it is Texas and Florida for baseball, and it's by far the number one state for water polo. So it just goes to show, like, these things are in the ecosystem, And so what else in your state, right? Whether it's hockey, lacrosse, more East Coast type things, So, yeah.
Youth sports and weather. Everything else, California.
Dude.
Well, the weather didn't cooperate for this body surfing competition.
Oh.
That's for damn sure,
Dude,
man.
that's right, man. That's right.
You know what's funny, man? I saw the video of your wave, and I could imagine that when you hit some good waves, like you're doing, like it's solid. But those waves are like, what, a foot and a half?
Small.
Jay,
Too small.
before we move on from the youth sports, I
Yeah,
did
let's
want to
keep it on
ask
the
you.
youth
I did want to ask you, Jay. Like, is there anything you would do different on how you've navigated youth sports with Caden mostly, right? Because Ava's kind of just getting into this now. Anything specific that you would have done different now?
I mean, I ask myself that question a lot. I think that no, and I'll tell you why. On like a weekly basis, I'm having these conversations. Like monthly, I'm having like deep reflections on this, like on a regular basis, to say, hey, are we, Ash and I, guiding our children the best way? And so if every week, every month, every year, we're coming together and saying, hey, we think this is what's best for our children, we're trying to do the best we can, then there's no regret in it. But I think I would caution myself not to get caught in the chamber, right? Because it's alluring, dude. You're like, every single weekend from now for the next 4 months, we're either going to have a water polo tournament or a baseball tournament. Wow. And you start to get to know the families, you start to get connected, everybody starts sharing the same things, and it just pulls you into this ecosystem. And it's like, I think it's important to kind of like detach from that for a moment and say, hey, is this what's in the best interest of our child? Or are we just getting, enamored by, hey, we're creating good relationships, we're, whatever. And so I'd say no. I'm happy with what we've done, because I also think that the sports that he's found interest in are high skill sports, and I think we could always get into the lower skill, like just like kind of, get after it sports in the future. So we'll revert back to this podcast 4 years from now and see what I'm thinking as he goes into high school.
One thing that I'll speak to from, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that I think is like the approach that you and Ashley have to this stuff that was really important. I think someone that did a great job talking about this was Jamie Cochran from Echelon Front, who we had on the podcast. Yeah. And I think that a lot of the people that, vilify or speak badly about travel sports in general, they bring up this like very valid point, right? This valid point that like what you were saying, every weekend now for the next 4 months, you guys have either a water polo tournament or a baseball tournament. And for a lot of families, that ends up being an extreme stressor, right? Like it becomes something where like the parents are extremely stressed. They're, like don't have a weekend where they're quote unquote doing something they enjoy or like taking time for the family. It's always like running around tournament. And like, yes, I'm sure that for some families, that is a stressor that they feel almost like obligated to be a part of because they've committed to this thing and their kids want to do it. But ultimately, it's kind of like bringing the family down and like you're not having family time. I'm sure that that exists. But I do think that like the thing that Jamie said on the podcast, and I'll always remember this, is like her and her husband genuinely enjoy going to wrestling tournaments. Like that's the thing that they want to do on the weekends. And like they wouldn't prefer to go on like a vacation or like a trip or like do a date day. Like they want to be there on the match, watching their kids wrestle all day, and like they make it into a family experience. And I think that, from what I know about you and your family and you guys approaching, I think you have a very similar approach. Like you're not dreading the fact that you have these tournaments for the next 4 months. You're excited. You're going to go. It's going to be something that the family all participates in. And I think that that's an important like flip side of the argument that's worth bringing up, is that like, yes, this could be a stressor that's like, oh my God, you haven't had a free weekend in 4 months to do something but a tournament. Or it could just be something that like your family genuinely enjoys and that you and your partner, like that's the thing that you want to do. Like you want to go watch your kids play baseball for 6-7 hours. And I think that that's important, because for me, I wouldn't have thought of that until someone mentioned it. And it's like, oh yeah, like this could just be literally what you prefer to do. And obviously there's middle ground to this stuff, but I remember her bringing that up. And based on what I know about you guys approaching it too, I think that that exists as well. It's not that everyone that's committing to 4 months straight of tournaments is like, ripping their hair out or walking
dreading
around like
it or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're fortunate that we don't have to travel too far, right?
That's true too.
But
that's true too.
We're staying within. But like, think about it this way. I'll add another layer to it, right? This weekend, my in-laws, my parents, my
everyone shows up.
they're all coming to travel base. Like, and then next week it's the same thing. And so on the weekends now I have an opportunity to connect with my parents, right? I get to see them. I get to spend time with them. So there's layers to youth sports I think are really powerful, because it gives you moments where you could, obviously there's teaching moments for the kids, which is the most important, but also there's moments for you and your spouse to like do something together, maybe when there's a break or whatever. And then there's also opportunities for the family to come together. So yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's been a huge blessing in our life. And like, if you had told me, like, this is just the final little piece on this for parents, like if someone had told me a year ago that my daughter would be playing high school sports, I would have told them there's no way, or not no way, because in parenting, there's never no, but highly unlikely. And now we're going to the first scrimmage this weekend.
Hell yeah.
So, keep exposing, keep being positive, keep shining light on things that you think can make an impact, whether it's, there's all kinds of things, right? Theater, this, that, but you never say never, because especially with kids, man, things change real quick. So
have there been any outside influences for Ava that you've noticed over the past little bit that like got her to go down this route? Like anything that you've noticed that, as a parent of a daughter, like anything that was like, oh, that was a really good thing for her to watch or look up to, that kind of opened her up to something that maybe she wouldn't have been comfortable with in the past?
Yeah, I'll say this like explicitly. I think for young girls, they're highly impressionable, and you have to be really careful the pros and cons of having people around them and how they influence. And so Ava just had someone influence in a very positive way. Hey, I think you could be really good at this. You should try this. In a like, came from the right person at the right time with the right spirit, and that sparked everything, right?
Was it?
And it could have been the opposite. What's that?
Who was it?
Well, we had two people. So like there was an Amy who's like a water polo coach that's been working with her. I also had a buddy of mine, Brad, who met with her one-on-one. Like just the first exposure was my buddy Brad, who's a assistant head coach at San Jose State. First time she had ever been exposed to water polo, and he said something in a way that was like uplifting. And then she backed that up with her brother, his sister, same thing. And I guess that's the point, I think. And I'm sure that it goes with young boys too, but from my experience, young girls, they could hold on to words a little bit more than I think some of the boys can. And so you got to surround them with people that are going to lift them up and not pull them down.
Dude, this goes for adults too, man.
Oh yeah,
This is just good coaching. This is just good coaching. It's called being a good coach and talking to somebody who has a genuine interest in what you're talking about and giving them an honest look, but also giving them a look at it where you can say, like, hey, you could do this. Yeah, is it going to be tough? Yeah, of course it's going to be tough, but you could actually do this and it'd be fun for you, I think. And I think that's something across our coaching careers that, like, when we looked at workouts or you looked at movements or you looked at anything that would involve any level of trepidation from somebody, you could spark them up, you could get them going, or you could snuff their spirit out really quickly. Hey, this is probably too challenging for you. There's no way that you could do this.
yeah.
Man, that's happened a lot in the gym environment as well. I think that that's an awesome conversation. So shout out Brad, shout out Amy for giving somebody the confidence, a little bit of boost in confidence to do something that they might have been a little bit scared about.
Dude, well, I'll leave you one more thing before, because I completely agree with you. So I've been obviously working self-defense with both the kids for years, and there's never been a notion that Ava in particular has never once ever in her life expressed any interest in it, other than the fact that it's just a prerequisite at our house. Never interested. She's playing water polo, and one of the coaches is like, hey, wrestling's next season. I think you'd be really good at it. And what does she do? She comes home. She's like, I'm kind of open-minded to it. I almost fainted on the floor, right? But that's an example. MDV is like as coaches, as parents, as leaders, in whatever you're doing, dude, your words matter, and they could lift people up or they could pull people down. And it's like, yeah, man, I hear you. So talk to us through your
oh man,
talk us through. Was it so MDV competed in the body surfing. It was the
World Championships of body surfing. Yeah.
World Championships of body surfing. And was it in Oceanside? It was in Oceanside?
It was in Oceanside. It's been held here for 48 years. And this was the 48th year, next year 49, and then the year after that 50. So people come from all over the country mostly. They get some people internationally who come on in, but Hawaii brings a big crew in usually, and there's some people from all up and down the coast of California, and then some other beach towns in the East Coast and stuff like that. But this year the weather and the waves were a little bit funky, and I had one person say that this was the worst year that they had in terms of like the water showing up for this competition. So it just is what it is. You know what? I didn't perform the results weren't what I wanted them to be. And the thing with this one was that I really tried my absolute best to go out there and perform and do something well that I've been doing for a really long time. I've been body surfing in the ocean for, since I was 16 years old at a higher level, ocean lifeguard type of level, knowing how to use fins, knowing how to use, your body against a wave selection, length of ride, tricks, all that kind of stuff. And one of the biggest lessons for me this weekend was that, like, you just can't control the conditions. You can't control the conditions. All you can do is your best and go out there and try to have fun and try to make the most of it. You can't control the conditions and you can't control the judges. You just got to go out there and do your thing. So I'm going to compete again next year, but this year learned a few lessons about, what to do if there's no waves. It's literally like nothing in the water to really, really get after. And the judging just didn't go in my favor. So I tried my hardest and it wasn't there for me.
How many people were in your bracket?
Oh, there were a lot of people in the 40 through 49, which is the bracket that I'm in right now, was the heaviest bracket. I think there was 5 heats of 5 or 6 athletes per heat. So like 30 people in my age group. And then the kid who ended up winning this is a Hawaiian kid. I think his name is the Brown Dolphin. I mean, this kid just looks like a fish in the water. There's levels to body surfing, just like there's levels to everything, which is really fun and interesting because, you just think of it as like a straight ride in, but then you watch somebody who's really, really good at this and they just do it at a whole nother level. It looks like they have an engine attached to their feet. It's crazy.
What are you being judged on? So
Good question.
How does it work? And I'm also super curious, like, what aspect of fitness do you think most translated to you either performing well or being really prepped for something like this? Because I literally have no idea.
Yeah, good question. So it's judged like a surf competition. You have a 15-minute heat and you have an 8-wave maximum for that 15-minute heat. And they judge you or they grade you off of the combined score of your best 2 waves within that 8-wave selection. But they judge you on the length of ride, the takeoff style or position, the overall style of the ride, tricks, whether or not the ride connects into another wave. So like you kind of have this opportunity to take one wave into the next sometimes. And that was very heavily weighted in this competition. And those are the main ones. It's a very, very subjective grading system based off of the 4 or 5 judges that they have. So they have one person who spots with binoculars, and then the rest of the judges are discussing the waves that the athletes are taking. So you really don't know. You really don't know who saw your wave or who graded your wave. And you just have to go out there and try your hardest and do your best. But I think, Gabe, that's a good question, man. Fitness wise, it wasn't a matter of being a super strong swimmer this weekend because the water wasn't super turbulent. Like it just was pretty flat. So it was mostly just making the most. If you happen to find one of the waves that kind of came through, it was making sure that you were on that wave. So you were positioned in the place that you had the best opportunity to be successful if that wave came through. So that was really it this year. And a lot of the guys had a hard time figuring out the wave this year, which is par for the course on a day like that. But I'm looking forward to continuing the pursuit and keeping going forward. But huge lesson learned for me. Like I was so excited about this competition. I trained really hard for it. I was in the water nearly every day that there was a wave. I was swimming really hard. I was going out for long ocean swims. I was working on my breath work, and the conditions just didn't show up. And then the judges weren't in my favor. So I had to really like take a step back because I walked out of the water and I was like, I probably didn't win that heat, but there's no way I didn't qualify for the next round. I thought I qualified for the next round easy. And then I saw literally was standing there as they posted the scores. And I was like, holy shit. And my whole my heart just sunk. And I had to like really call on all of this stuff that I've been like doing with the Daily Stoic and like this mindset stuff that I've been diving into for years. And I was just like, it just is what it is. I can't do anything about it. So what's the point of getting upset?
Did they take 2 or 3 from each heat? Is that the way they did it?
They took the top 3 from each heat out of 6.
Dude, here's the thing though. Like, and I'm reflecting on this just with Master Worlds for Jiu-Jitsu coming up. Today, you're probably you're probably the best body surfer you've ever been, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because you dedicated like the last month or whatever it is, 2 months, 3 months to training for this thing. So like sometimes I think about this a lot because it's very similar to jiu-jitsu, very, very similar. The judging can be subjective. I'd say that in body surfing is probably more subjective than jiu-jitsu.
Very subjective sport.
Yeah, even for sure. But dude, you did everything that was in your control. You went out there and you were the man in the arena. I think there's something to being the man in the arena, the person who puts himself out there, win, lose, draw, that like, no matter what, man, like you got to have respect for the dude who goes out there and goes and competes. I love it. I find it to be highly encouraging. And I'd encourage anybody listening to this to find something that gets them a little bit uncomfortable, because when MDV walks up and sees he didn't make it to the next bracket, like, yeah, of course that stung, but it stung because he cared.
Oh, for sure.
And he wanted to do well. And now he needs to learn how to process. Dude, it's just life. Like, that's awesome, man. Good for you.
Yeah. And the wild thing was like over the past couple of months here in Oceanside, we've had humongous swell. I mean, I sent you guys some pictures and videos of waves where you saw a guy get tossed like 50 feet in the air. And on those days, I'm sitting there on the shore and I'm looking at it and I'm like, fuck, let's go. I'm like fired up to be in the water in a way that I'm like, cool, it's gonna be a cool test.
Right.
On the day that I competed, my heart rate was through the roof. On a small day, insignificant swell day, entering the water, I had to calm myself down because I couldn't breathe because there was 4 other people running into the water next to me. And that was a good reminder that it's just competition is just different.
Yep.
It's just different. It doesn't matter. Like if you can roll on the mats with your buddy, the number one guy in the world outside of your house as much as you want. But as soon as you step into whatever arena they're holding it at, you shake the guy's hand, the judge is there, you put on the little wrist wrap, whatever. Competition is just different. It's just different. And it's a tough thing to remember if you haven't competed in a while, that no matter what it is, when you're going up against other people who are equally or, also skilled or also want to win, you just have a next level of like feeling in your body. It's different.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting me excited
Fired
and nervous,
up.
for Master Worlds because it's very similar, right? And
yeah, and jiu-jitsu is a whole nother level because you actually have to be physical with the person who you're standing next to.
Yeah, it's a gnarly sport. I mean, for sure. I mean, body surfing is tough because of obviously the risk of the wave and all that kind of stuff. But like jiu-jitsu is highly aggressive. I'd say, right? There's moments of real stress that I'm gonna have to overcome. So,
how many weeks out? How many weeks out are you, Jay?
I'm competing next Thursday. So today is Tuesday. I compete in 10 days, and or Thursday or Friday, depending on when my heat is. And then I don't know. I think I have like 50 guys in my bracket, maybe 30, 40, and which is a lot. The reason why I can't compete locally as much, and I don't know if this goes the same for body surfing, but because it goes into different like weight classes, belt classes, there's a lot of classification for jiu-jitsu. You have to go to these big tournaments to kind of get enough people to show up to make it like, hey, like when you win Master Worlds, like it's a big deal because it's going to take you 6, 7, 8 matches to win. You're not just going to go out there and win one match and win, you know?
Yeah. It's all one day.
It's all one day it's all one day for my division.
Sure. That's what I mean. But you're doing 7 to 8 matches in one day is what I'm saying. It's not like so for you might have to come back for day 2.
For me to win, I'm anticipating I'm going to have 6 fights. That's my anticipation. At least 6 5-minute matches with probably 5 minutes in between, give or take, right? Wow. I mean, it depends too. Like if you sub somebody, it benefits you. You know, we were working this 2 days ago where,
submission.
You know, if you get a submission within a minute, dude, you get the rest of that 4 minutes to chill. But, you know.
So is that kind of your goal going into it? Like you're going into to win, like that's what you're visualizing, that's what you're taking. And then I'm curious, like, because the stakes aren't as high now, and I'm sure you would agree, as like the CrossFit Games, right? Like this is something you're doing, you're putting yourself out there, there's work going into it, but it isn't this like, you know, full family like investment for an entire year, which I'm sure was just a completely different beast, right? So I guess like 2-part question. A, is your mentality going in like, hey, I'm trying to do those 6, 7 matches and I'm trying to win? And then is that any different than what you would take as like, I at least have to accomplish X for this not to be a loss?
Oh man, it's a really difficult question. So like I anticipate that I'm going to be the most well-conditioned, the strongest, and moderately appropriate level of technique for my bracket. That's my expectation. My expectation is that I will not be out-conditioned or out-strength. But dude, jiu-jitsu is weird like that. You know, you could be the first match and you could be on paper 10 times out of 10 getting somebody, and you could step the wrong way, do the wrong thing, and maybe not get submitted, but maybe get put into a position where you can't get out of, and they could hold you there and you lose. So I'm trying to approach this with some like realistic expectations of like, dude, I'm going out there and I'm going out there with the expectation that I'm going to win my matches because I've been putting in the work. That being said, if I don't, I know that I have a strong game plan and I've put in the work, and where it falls, because that's the only option in jiu-jitsu, because there's just, remember Mason at ADCC, like what was it? MDV was it last year, or Gabe? Was it last year?
I don't know. What are you talking about with Mason? Mason
was it
Fowler,
2 years ago?
one of the top grapplers in the world.
So Mason Fowler, dude, he was on top of it. He was blah, blah, blah. A guy, you know, took his foot. He just stepped the wrong way. Yeah. And, you know, and that's it.
Jiu-jitsu is crazy like that, man. And like it all changes so fast and instantaneously. And the position of your body matters so much, and which direction you choose to move, how fast you choose to get there. And, you saw this a couple of years ago. We talked a little bit about Jay Rodriguez. So Jay Rodriguez was a blue belt who entered the ADCCs, fought all black belts across the entire competition, and subbed every single one of them. And I bet all of those guys were like, I'm probably, if I lose, I'm probably not going to get subbed, whatever. Like, it just is different sometimes. Sometimes somebody comes in with some skills that you weren't expecting, or some speed or some strength that you weren't expecting. And it can just be over fast. And
Dude, you can have a judo guy. Like last time I competed at Worlds, I was standing up with this judo guy. He's probably a black belt in judo, and they stand different. They fight different. He had grips like iron steel, and I didn't know how to react. And so, do that. But that's also part of the, fun of the game. That's also why I'm excited about it, is because it isn't consistent. It is unknown, and it is terrifying. And for that, I'm excited. Like
on the flip side, you could be a guy that gets someone else that potentially is more skilled to take the wrong step, right? Like,
yeah,
why,
exactly.
Like, why not you, right? Like, you could completely be an underdog going into that sixth fight, but like they slip up for a second and you take advantage of that. Like, it's not like you're the only one that could be a victim of that.
No, sure. 100%. I mean, it's a two-way street. The reason why jiu-jitsu is so unique is because it's like a game of chess, and you're trying to figure out what your partner's going to do, and you have 5 minutes. 5 minutes is not a very long time. Especially
feels like forever, though.
I was going to say,
feel like forever.
Feel like forever. Yeah,
it could
feel like
be
the longest 5 minutes of your life.
Yeah. So but yeah, I'm excited about it. But it brings me up this really interesting point about exposing yourself to new skills and whatnot. So yesterday I was at Daniel Cormier's.
I do want to ask you a question before we move on, because I'm curious, because over the past 2 years, you've done Master Worlds. You've also done the tactical games, and now Master Worlds again. 2 of those have happened. 1 of them is about to happen. And every time I've talked to you about it, because we've had the podcast the whole time, you always talk about like, this is what it's going to take to win. This is what it's going to take to be top 3. This is what it's going to take. And, I know that Master Worlds, last time you did it, didn't go how you would have wanted it to. Tactical games also didn't go how you wanted it to. How much of that do you think is just the fact that like, you've been an athlete at such a high level for so long that your default is just like, if I sign up for something, I'm not measuring like, what is it going to take for me to finish or participate? I'm literally measuring like, what's it going to take me to win? And what have you learned in how those last 2 BJJ World and tactical games have gone? And has that ever kind of like demotivated you from continuing to put yourself out there? Or how has it changed from, again, going back to the games years?
Well, I think all it is just exposure, right? So then I competed at Master Worlds. I came home. I competed again at Purple Belt because I had to get something underneath my belt, and I ended up winning that tournament, right? That was a local one. With tactical games, dude, that was just, I went in there with the expectation that I was going to be able to hang, and I hung, but I didn't put myself in a position to win because I made amateur errors. When I compete again, which I'm expecting to compete in the next couple of months, dude, I'm hoping that confidence will just bleed over. Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is like I'm competitive, and I want to assume that if I sign up for something, I'm going in there with the intention that I want to do well and I want to win. But I also need to be realistic on the expectations there. Like my first tactical games, there's just a lot of things to learn. I'm expecting now at brown belt at my weight being, dude, I'm expecting to go in there and throw down, and I'm expecting to perform well because most people, most of the time I do, but you just never know. And so my life will not change if I win Master Worlds or if I lose Master Worlds, but what will be is like, I won't have regrets in the future that I didn't compete at every belt level in jiu-jitsu. That's the real reason why I'm so excited about this, is that I want to compete at a high level at every belt so that I don't look back 10 years from now and be like, damn, dude, like, I wish I had done that,
It's only been a year. How much better are you now going into BJJ Worlds as a brown belt than when you went in as a purple belt? I know it's like a hard thing to like quantify, but how much better do you think you are in a year?
Yeah,
Someone that's already at such a high level.
I mean, exponentially better because of the technique, right? And you start to develop your own game as you get better at jiu-jitsu, where what you learn is that you don't have to be good at everything. You need to have awareness and be aware, but you end up developing your game. And MDV's game, for example, will be much different than my game. We have different body types, different
A
strength.
game, B game.
Yeah, so there's just it's gonna be different. But as you get more mature in your journey, you realize what your game is, and you might choose to go off your game plan because it like in training you want to work other things. But like right now, I have a pretty solid plan of where I want to go, and I didn't have that in the past.
One thing that, Gabe, you brought this up a little bit earlier in the conversation about like, it's not the CrossFit games. That's just a really interesting assessment because like, I think, I don't know if Jason, and my assumption would be that the mindset is probably going to be very similar going in once he steps onto the mat versus once stepping onto the floor at the CrossFit games. And I think like, the like this primal feeling of like the CrossFit games is interesting because you're standing there next to a bunch of people, but you're really running your own race a lot of times, right? You're not interacting with the other person nearly ever in CrossFit unless you have to, specifically chase them down a specific field, or if there's like a run where you have to pass them, whatever. But in jiu-jitsu, you're putting your hands on this person, and like there's just a different level to that where I would be shocked if Jason's brain isn't like at the same level or higher than it was for the CrossFit games. You're going to go out and you're going to fight this person. You got to fight this person who's at a very, very high level. And like, how does that not just send every endorphin, every bit of adrenaline, like straight to the roof?
Well, I mean, I don't want to speak for Jay, so definitely want you to like, tell us what's actually going on under the hood after. But what I was saying and what I do think has changed is, yes, like 3, 2, 1, go, or like, whatever they say at a BJJ competition, then yes, I think that is a very similar. I guess what I'm talking about is like, I would assume the week leading up to the CrossFit games, the night before, like you're just like, absolutely, like there is zero room for anything that isn't what I'm supposed to do to show up prepped for this thing that has been a huge investment for an entire year. And I'm sure that also, if your goal was to be on the podium at the CrossFit Games and you ended up, 20th, that would take a little bit more time and a little bit more self-reflection to get back to like a baseline than even if you're out first round on this BJJ tournament. I think that it's going to be a bummer, but I think you're going to like, give yourself an hour and like whatever and just be like, hey, cards didn't go in my favor. We're going right back into it. I think that that's the difference. And I do think that that impacts how different it does feel, even at 3, 2, 1, go, even though those are very similar. I think it's just the pressure before and the pressure after that is a little apples and oranges. But Jay, you tell us.
No, I do. Yeah. Because I mean, in CrossFit, first off, you have the 20,000 people. Like it just was a whole different level.
Whole different ball game. Yeah.
But like, I mean, they're kind of apples and oranges because one of them, it's like you're stressed because you have all these expectations. You've had years of work. You sacrifice so much, right? And you know what's on the line. The other one is you don't have all that same thing, but you're physically there's just so many things outside your control. So in CrossFit, there's a lot that was in your control. My game plan, my execution, my this. In Jiu-Jitsu, there's a lot of things that are out of your control, and you need to learn how to compartmentalize those two, which is why I love, competing, because you walk out there and you got to quickly make decisions based on things that are outside your control. And how do you respond to things that are outside your control? And there's a lot of correlations to that in real life that I get a lot out of. But ultimately, obviously with CrossFit, it's just a completely different, there was so much more invested, right? So much more invested, so much more sacrifice than this. This is more for me that I feel like I was doing for my family. It was a different mindset. It was like, because if I'm going to be gone for this amount of time, if I'm going to have them all travel down, if I'm going to do all these different things, like I want to make sure that I show up. This is more like, dude, I'm doing this for me because I want to get uncomfortable. I want to be the man in the arena. I want to see how I could perform. It's just kind of different.
Gotcha. That's a good explanation. Thanks for clarifying that.
Dude, so yesterday, I was at Daniel Cormier. He's starting a new fight school. And I just, for everybody listening to this show, I think that we all try and work hard. We're all, dedicated to being the best versions of ourselves. These fighters, they live a life that is so just something I'm not familiar with. I mean, these guys are living in the gym. They are coming from all over the world to come and compete. And just the level of dedication, no money, no nothing, just trying to make it, man. And they're hungry, but they're the most gracious people you'll ever meet. And I want to so I was fighting, so I was doing stand-up sparring, and we were wearing shin guards and 16 ounce 12. We were wearing the bigger gloves. And this guy, he comes up, he's like, "Hey, you want to go?" And he's wearing like small, like 4-ounce gloves because he's getting ready he's actually competing like in a week or two. And I'm like, Eddie, he didn't speak very good English, but I'm like, "Look, dude, number one, I'm not a professional fighter. And number two, those gloves look like they look like they're going to hurt if you hit me."
The lighter the gloves, the harder the hitting.
Yeah. He goes, "Don't worry. Don't worry. I won't touch." I'm like, "All right." Like, okay. So we start sparring. I'm like, and dude, this guy, I was just so amazed at his control, right? So we're sparring and I'm trying to land jabs. I'm trying to land shots. Nothing crazy. You're probably at like, I don't know, 60% at the end range, right? Like you're not trying to knock somebody out because you're not wearing headgear. But this guy, dude, he's throwing strikes and they're like grazing my nose. He's throwing strikes and they're like barely tapping my cheek. And I'm like, how does he have such control to get like it was mind blowing to me. And it just goes to show that when you become an expert at your craft, that you could be so dangerous yet so controlled. And I had to share it here on the podcast. I don't know the guy's name.
He could have melted you at any moment. He could have just melted you. He's just grazing your cheek.
Dude, it was like something
That's crazy, bro.
And you know what was even more impressive is I was stepping into some of the punches, which I'm not saying that's the good thing, but he was able to regulate as I'm stepping. Like I'm going for a jab and he's going for a jab, and he's able to just it was just
clean shave. What did he look like? What was his size and stature?
Yeah, I'm trying to picture this guy. And what was the accent? Was it like Brazilian? Like what are we talking about?
He was either Russian or Brazilian. It was difficult for me to tell because
I
know that sounds. He was either from that kind. I think he was Brazilian. But
he was either from Kazakhstan or from Brazil. Let's go.
But dude, I'm telling you, I mean, he was probably like 175 pounds. He was wearing a track jacket, like a zip-up old school PE coach.
I'm gonna get
a video of this.
Dude, you know what? I'm gonna look and see if a video, because it was just his ability to control his strikes.
Was he unassuming?
Well, I mean,
moderately.
Kind of. I mean, dude, he had the beard with the cauliflower. I wouldn't say he was very unassuming, but
yeah, beard and cauliflower ears, telltale.
Dude, I went with
fuck you up.
Yeah, I went with a few guys that were legit. But everybody, the reason why I wanted to share this is like, dude, I think there's this like misconception about fighters or people that train. And I'm telling you, those guys are the most controlled humans. Like they could easily knock you out, but they choose not to. They have controlled violence. And when you could meet someone like that who could really control themselves, it's fascinating. So shout out to DC and what he's building out there in Gilroy. It's an honor to be a part of it. I did take them through the burpee test, which was eye-opening as well.
Oh man, we might have to talk about that next time, because I want to hear about how all these fighters did through that EMOM 15 TH burpees every minute. Ooh,
a little fish out of water in some cases, right?
I watched the clip though, and I think that they are a great example of having to learn it. I think that there was 100% there, just like, what's going on? You're being as inefficient as possible, and you can clean some stuff up, and they'll double, triple their score. But yeah, we can save that for next time.
Well, some of these guys doing five round fights at 5 minutes. You know, the conditioning's
not an issue.
It's just, well, the reason why I liked it is that, so my biggest takeaway from yesterday, there was probably like, I don't know, 25 fighters there from all over the world. And the way they do it is they were starting off stand-up sparring, low key. Then when you go into the cage, it's a specific difference in tempo. So you go from when you're on the floor, it's like everybody just knows, like it's like 70% effort. You're tapping. Yeah, you're gonna hit a little bit if you're hitting the gut. Like it's gonna be hard, but it's nothing crazy. But when you go in the cage, the mindset is, hey, we're getting ready for a fight, and we're gonna fight differently in the cage when we are outside. But these guys, you know, quite a few of them, you know, we started the training session at 9. We finished at 11:30 or 12. And for the most part, nobody fueled prior or during. And so I just had a conversation about the carbs like we had with Kelly Surratt, and just reminded them, like, guys, have some honey, have some dates, find some sugar, do something. But you got to have something in between these training sessions because they're going so damn hard that they're using so much energy up.
Mm. There was also just while we're on the UFC fighting topic, there was a title fight this past weekend, and you saw a levels difference in this title fight that I don't know if you've really ever seen. Well, there might have been some fringe examples, but Khamzat Chimaev pretty much took apart Duplessis over the course of 5 rounds. He only threw 47 significant strikes, but he controlled him for, out of the 25 minutes, like 21 minutes of the fight, which is insane. Yeah. He beat the shit out of this guy with ground and pound and grappling, and took him to deep waters and just drowned him. And it was a pretty dominant performance. When you see these fights too at the title level, like very rarely does it go that way where it's like that lopsided dominant. This was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I got to watch it. I just heard the highlights that basically the way he worked on the ground was like a master class, but I have not seen it. So yeah, there's
levels.
There's levels to every game. And you know, it got me excited. And I hope that when you're listening to this podcast, you're like, dude, you know what? I want to go expose myself to different skills. Or maybe you're like, hey, that's cool. I'm going to stick to the gym and just keep training hard in the gym because that for me is where I'm at. It's like, hell yeah. But getting exposed to these guys that have striking capabilities that I aspire to, it motivates me. I walked away out of that gym and we grappled and I felt pretty good there. But I walked away being like, man, I got some room in my tank for stand up, and I'm going to start focusing on that after Master Worlds.
I love that. I've shifted my goals focus a little bit. I'm still going to get into the water here at the end of the summer and still body surf and still keep that skill sharp, obviously. But now that my ankle has been tested, man, definitely going to start getting back into some training in jiu-jitsu on the mats. I just think there's a different level of confidence when you know how to handle yourself when somebody puts hands on you. And that skill has gotten a little bit rusty with taking some time off from the injuries. So I'm excited about that.
Well, welcome back to the mats.
Yeah, hell yeah.
For our listeners out there who are not a part of the Train Hard app, I just want to be the first one and the most passionate one to clearly say to you guys, you're missing out on something special. You really are. Train Hard Daily is just a solid strength conditioning program, especially for any law enforcement out there. Just a really well-balanced program. You have Flex bodybuilding program. There's a 3-day week option, also a 5-day week. It's a solid way to have this progressive plan to get stronger, to look the way you want to look. And, the wave cycles that start off with, they're solid, right? You're just building up strength. And if you have, limited time, limited equipment in particular, MDV's program, No Time for BS, it's just a really good foundational program to get you strong and to look and feel like an athlete. And if you have not tested out or tried out our app, it comes with a 7-day free trial. Check out the podcast show notes. Check out the community section. I believe what we're doing in there is something really special. And if you're a guy who wants to be able to train hard so they can protect and provide for their family, their friends, themselves, we got you covered. There's along with the nutrition protocol, you're winning. Like, that's it. All you got to do, follow a program, follow the nutrition protocol.
Shout out to like the 5 or 6 Oceanside police officers that are on the Train Hard Daily program, bro. These guys are looking so jacked walking around Oceanside now. It's crazy. Awesome. Dude, I got this one guy who comes in and gets a cup of coffee every Friday. He's barely fitting in his shirt, bro. His biceps are just popping out. I got to take a picture of him next time. He loves it.
I mean, have you seen the Train Hard Men's Club Evolution? Dude. It is... we should do a side-by-side picture. I'm going to talk to Liz.
A before and after of that group pic, bro. Those guys are looking all diced up.
Yeah. Man. All right. Hey, I appreciate you guys. Gabe, MDV, thank you so much. Make sure you check out the podcast show notes for the link to the Train Hard app and keep getting after it.